Hi, welcome to Morning Talk Show. Today, my conversation with comedian, actor, podcaster, musician, and just general humorous person, Johnny Pemberton. Hi, welcome to the show. Today, my conversation with Johnny Pemberton. Johnny is a comedian and podcaster and actor. He's been in a bunch of movies. He was really enjoyable to talk to. He's one of those guys with just like a really interesting and kind of warped perspective on life and comedy. And he's great at accents. And he's great at that kind of comedy that like you kind of almost can't put your finger on why it's funny. But he just exudes humor. So it was fun to talk to him about the psychology and philosophy of comedy. So please like and subscribe on whatever podcast platform you're on. On the YouTube video, I'll have a bunch of links to Johnny Pemberton's online content. So now we'll get on with the interview.
Having a good voice goes a long way.
Yeah, I don't have one.
Oh, well, I guess it kind of depends on who's listening, though. Some people might say you do.
Yeah, maybe they do.
Right.
So yeah, Johnny Pemberton, welcome. Thank you for being on Morning Talk Show.
Cool. I'm happy to be here in the morning. I love the morning.
And I love your blanket in the background. I feel like everybody had that blanket in the 80s, but didn't know.
Yeah.
Like nobody knew where it came from. They just had it.
Yeah, I had one. My mom made it for her college roommate. No, her college roommate made it for her. Sorry.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, so
but this one's different. I bought this one at a thrift store in Minnesota.
Nice. I normally have sunlight on my face, but my family's been cooped up, and I didn't want to make them go in a weird spot in the house. So I'm in front of my creepy pump organ.
Looks good though.
1800s pump organ. Thanks.
Yeah.
I think our background game is strong today.
Very.
So yeah, you're my first comedian on the podcast. I really appreciate you coming on. It's not a comedy podcast, but I've been really interested in talking to a comedian about some of the same themes that I normally talk about.
Right.
And get the perspective, because I've always suspected that comedians and artists would maybe be doing a lot of the stuff that you do kind of more on an intuitive level rather than on some kind of like mission statement kind of level. Because I normally talk to people who have like a theme and a mission statement and like, this is, I teach meditation or I'm a philosopher or whatever like that. So I guess I'm just curious kind of how you got started or how you made the decision to be a comedian, like what your life looked like when you kind of actually made that choice.
It wasn't so much a choice as just like it's something I wanted to do for a long time. And I think it's the kind of thing when you want to do that, it's hard to do that because it's not really something where there's a job opening. It's not like that, It's a thing where you basically have to have a lot of gumption and self-confidence to decide you want to do this thing that's pretty ridiculous thing to do.
Yeah.
But I did it. I didn't start doing comedy until I moved to Los Angeles, and that was probably around 2005. But I wanted to do it for many years, but it was something where I just felt like it wasn't really available to me, or I just sort of felt like, I just didn't feel like I wasn't around people that seemed like that was an okay thing to do.
Right.
But I started by doing like some warm up for this web talk show. I worked at Fox Broadcasting at the time. We had this web talk show we were filming, and I decided I would do warm up for it, which was a fantastically bad idea. And a lot of people told me afterwards, like, why would you think that would be good? especially for your first time. I just thought, I was so, the longer I look back, or the longer, more amount of time that passes from certain things, the more I'm like, I can't believe I did that thing. It was
Yeah,
so
yeah,
stupid.
yeah,
I did it because I just really wanted to do it, and I had a lot of blind confidence, and I
yeah.
did. And it was terrible. It
Was
was
there an
absolutely
audience?
terrible. It was a paid audience in some place deep in the valley for this web talk show that was
Oh, wow.
supposed to be a internal promotion thing for
Yeah,
like some certain Fox show. This is obviously a while ago before the internet was very robust. So
yeah,
um, it was terrible, but I even afterwards, even though I felt so bad about it, that I didn't feel like I didn't want to ever do comedy again. I don't know why. I can remember going out to dinner with two people who I worked with on that. One of them was the host of the show. We were kind of making fun of how bad I did. And that's a thing that's like, I think important, is to definitely make fun in a joyful way of your failures, like, wow, that was really
yeah,
bad kind of thing.
yeah.
Then what happened was my friend Haley, she was dating a comedian at the time. His name is Peter Sprite, and
Mhm.
she put me in contact with him. I met with him for a couple hours once before a comedy show, and he helped me go over my material and helped me edit it down. And he put me up on his show at the Comedy
Oh,
Store in
wow.
the Belly Room, and I was incredibly, incredibly nervous. But all the stuff that he taught me how to do to make things concise and
Yeah.
just kind of figure out what exactly you want to talk about, it paid off. And I guess from then on, it was kind of like a thing where obviously I still had a lot of setbacks like anyone, but it was just something where I think I was kind of happy for the first time in my life, really, like
Wow.
really happy. Yeah,
And so that belly room set went okay?
it was outstanding. It was like incredible. You can see, I have a tape of it, and you can see my face as I'm kind of don't know what to do because it's going so well. I'm kind of like
Yeah.
blown away that's going well.
Wow, that's not the typical story though of the first. I guess the other one
So,
is more the typical
yeah,
story. The first story was more the typical.
right.
Wow, that's great. So yeah, yeah, and I'm sure you've like eaten shit since then.
Oh yeah,
Your fair share,
many
as they say.
times.
Uh,
Yeah, a lot. I think it's important to do that. Actually, it
yeah,
really is.
I think it's one of the things that probably sets comedians apart from normies or whatever, from
Yeah,
civilians, is that there is no way to do it uh, without just being excruciatingly humiliated
right.
every once in a while. So maybe it's a strength you have. Actually, it's probably something you have in common with the guy I talked to from the Flat Earth. He was just totally immune to judgment
That sounds about right for a
and
flat
bullshit.
earther.
Yeah, and like he was just so relaxed. Like, and probably
God.
every day he gets attacked by somebody
Oh
or gets
yeah.
made fun of. There's a whole documentary about him and them, and
It's almost like he's a masochist because he's just going into this thing that's. I
yeah,
mean, what do you expect?
yeah, you have to make a choice at some point, just not to take it personally, I guess.
Mhm.
So when you started off, was your comedy like? Because when I watch your comedy, I've never seen you in person, unfortunately. But
Right.
when I watch the things you do in the various places you do it,
Right.
it seems like there's a little bit of performance art, a little bit of like that type of thing where you're not telling people, you're not spelling out exactly what the joke is. Is it what I'm saying? Is it the way I'm talking? Is it
Yeah.
like, was your comedy always like that?
I think so. I wasn't really trying to do that. It was more just a thing where I got to see a lot of comedians in LA when I first moved here that I'd never seen before, and they were all so funny and so interesting. I'd never seen them on TV or anything. So it was very surprising to see all these people you'd never heard of before, but they're just so funny. I think a lot of that stuff I was doing was just a reaction of me trying to set myself apart, trying to
Right.
be, because I've always tried to do things like sometimes intentionally, a lot of times just sort of like a reaction, I've always tried to do stuff that has like a very clear, like, oh, this is me.
Right. Right.
I don't want to be confused with somebody else.
Yeah.
So I think that was just me really trying hard to be like, I don't want to be like someone else because I just I don't know. It's not like yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. So it's like, it's sort of just like an intuitive thing that you don't want to like, you don't want to be copying and doing one-liners.
Yeah. And I'm
So,
just not good at that stuff either. Like I
okay.
don't have that gift. There's people, a lot of comedians who can do that. Like I don't know, someone like Todd Barry or something,
Yeah.
who I find to be incredibly funny, but his
Yeah.
style, I can't do that. I just couldn't.
Right.
So it's just not like yeah. I think, but a lot of that stuff is it's what do you call it? It's you have to experiment with it, and it takes a long time to figure out kind of what it is. And
Yeah.
even then, I still sometimes I don't know. I'm like, what is it? What am I doing exactly?
Yeah. How much kind of slaving is there, like on your own? Like, are you a notepad guy? Like, do things get written down and like the very minutia, or is it kind of you wing it over and over and keep the best parts?
For a long time, and even now, I guess for as far as normal stand-up stuff goes, like normal, like as far as like my normal, I'm pretty much I have an idea of something I think is funny, and I do it on stage, and that's when it really comes together. Or I have something I thought about, and then I end up talking about it in the moment, and end
Okay.
up talking about it maybe about 5 or 10 times more than I thought about it. And so
Okay.
I like to build stuff on my feet, because for me, the tension and the stakes of performance forces you to
Yeah.
make it really good. And so a lot of times, the best time you'll ever do something is the first time you'll do it. And that's
Right.
kind of an unfortunate thing a lot of times, is because like the second show or the second time you do something is always the worst, because
Yeah.
you're trying to recreate what was natural the first time, but
Right.
you can't do that. So you know this,
Yeah.
you can't, but you can recreate it if you repeat it like over and over and over and over
Yeah.
again. And a lot of times it loses the magic of it. But I mean, that's just how things are. It's kind of that's just the sort of unfortunate nature
Yeah.
of performance,
It,
essentially.
it's kind of like the fleeting, like little glimpse of the Holy Spirit or something,
Yeah,
where
very much.
you're like, there went, oh shit, and like I find this is true with musicians a lot, where there's something called kind of demo syndrome or demoitis, where
Really?
you can never get the feeling of your demo recording of something again. Like,
Yeah.
you'll capture that you were really in the moment when you get that vibe, and then it's like you've caught the little fawn in the forest, or something, and it let you pet it, and then you're just like, when you try to re-record it's like you're wrestling the fawn to the ground and pulling its eyes open, and like, I don't know if that,
Yeah.
maybe
No,
that's
it
too
makes
dark of
sense.
an image.
It makes sense, I guess. It's like a thing where I think a lot of people, especially myself, you forget how much work it takes to do something a second time. And it's just kind of like you want it to be effortless, but it's just not. And so it's just the kind of thing where you have to enjoy the first time, because
Yeah.
it's just how it is. There's nothing you can do about it.
Yeah. Yeah. I wonder if any comedians are immune from that. Like,
I
you
mean,
can't,
I don't
you just
know.
can't imagine Dave Chappelle, not feeling natural, but it happens. He's just good at,
Well, he just works on his stuff tremendously. He's
yeah.
also been doing comedy since he was about 11 years old, too.
Yeah.
So that kind of helps a lot, I think.
He's totally
So
relentless.
much of
Yeah.
that stuff is just that. It's just how long have you been doing it?
Yeah.
And that matters so much, because the longer you've been doing something, the more you can just kind of slip into it. And that also means, I think a lot of times there's a lot of comedians, there's a lot of anyone who they don't like doing the thing as much as they think they do.
Hmm.
Like there's a lot of musicians who don't play their instruments that much. And I think there's a lot of
Hmm.
comedians who don't like to joke around. Like someone who pretty much always, I mean, right now it's probably an exception, but I'm just usually always trying to fuck with anything at all times. I will
Yeah.
find a way to fuck with it, or like, what's the way I can make fun of this? Or what's the way I can almost get in trouble? Like constantly doing
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. I love it.
And just in my normal life, even by myself, to where it's not something I'm doing because like, oh, I'm a comedian, I got to practice. It's more just,
Right.
I will go crazy. I will go absolutely batshit crazy if I don't find something stupid to do with this thing that's supposed to be, it's supposed to be serious here. It's like,
Yeah.
okay, well, I definitely am not going to be serious with that, but just because
Yeah.
the self-importance of stuff is just, you want to just smash it.
Yeah.
So
Oh,
I think it's
yeah.
a lot of that. There's a lot of people who, I mean, that's just how I think there's this old story I always think about with Gene Wilder. When he started, someone told me this. I haven't researched this exactly, but it can't be that far from the truth. But he was a serious theater actor, and he's doing this show, and people kept laughing, and he was like really distraught. And it was like, this sucks. Everyone's laughing at the stuff I'm doing, and someone's like, you're just funny. It's not like you're not trying to be funny. You're just funny because the way you sound, the way you move, and the way your eyes, all that stuff.
Yeah.
Some people are just funny because they're fucking weird, and that's nothing you can do about it. And I think that's the case with some people are just really musical. Some people have like a rhythm that's like they can't get out of them. I think that's a lot of, I don't know, that's to me is part of it.
Yeah, that's like me. I'm just really fucking graceful. I just can't, I just dance, and it comes out of me. No, I'm just kidding. That's not the case, but I do. It's kind of weird. One of the weirdest surprises of having this podcast is that I have that thing of like when self-importance is happening, I'm like, fuck you, like I'm going to do, like my head will come up with all of the worst possible things to say, like what would be the most offensive thing I could possibly
how you destroy
say
this thing.
Yeah. And when I was first thinking of doing a podcast, I knew I wanted to talk about psychology and philosophy and stuff like that. I thought I was going to be funny, but I'm not. Like I'm not funny at all when I do it. And it actually was frustrating. Like originally I actually had this idea of this persona. I was going to be a sweaty pastor. Like I was going to, like I had a suit in mind. I didn't go as far as to buy the suit. I was going to, like I was going to be that level, but just something about talking to people about stuff in this way kind of doesn't bring that out in me. So, and obviously it's not bringing it out in you because you're not fucking with me now.
Well, I'm just, I don't know. I'm kind of tired.
No, it's okay. And we're complete strangers. So, I couldn't tell leading up to this. I couldn't tell if I wanted you to fuck with me. I was like, I kind of almost wish you did it, as the garbage man or whatever, like, but obviously I don't want you to do that, but I was like, what's he going to do? I don't know. But anyway, so one of the things I don't prepare questions, but if, and maybe you've already answered it, but is there an answer to the, hey,
what was that?
There's a little bit of
okay.
reverb. So is there an answer to the question of why did you become a comedian, or is it just that answer that you already gave of like, you did it and you felt better than you'd ever felt before?
I just really wanted to, and I always wanted to, and I did it, and I felt better than I've ever felt before. So it was like, I can't not do this. I think a lot of people would say that. They just feel compelled to do it because anything else would just be settling and you would be miserable. Yeah. So it's more just that. I love it so much, and I would be miserable doing anything else. I think at least partially miserable.
It's like a life. I feel like it's like a life vocation. Like, I don't know if there's enough. I think we're kind of raised with this idea that you find a career and you learn it and you slave at it and you learn it from a book and everything can be learned from a book. And it seems like a comedian, I almost think of it as the same as a clergyman or something like that.
Yeah, it is kind of like that, I suppose.
It's a calling, and you are that no matter what.
For sure.
Even if you were in a call center, you would be a comedian in a call center.
And I was a comedian in a call center for many years.
Oh yeah?
Yeah. Forever.
Did you do accents for people on the phone?
Yeah, a lot of times I would match the person's accent who answered the phone, and I found they would talk to you longer.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah, I did some sales calls, but only for like a few weeks. I really hated that.
Yeah.
I think I quit that because it was bad.
The worst.
Yeah, but I did like surveys, and I would just match the person's whatever they were doing. I try to match it, and then it would always make it go better because you sort of be on their wavelength.
I guess if you were doing it legit, but people get pissed off when you do their accent and you don't do it well.
Yeah, but a lot of times people have no idea if you're doing it well or not unless you're really bad at it. Because it's like you don't know what that person. I've heard a lot of different voices out there, and it's like everyone sounds like everything. There's some person out there who sounds away like, what? You talk like that normally? And they do.
That's your day to day. Yeah. You can't believe it. And you are very good at accents, which uh, I get this impression when I watch the stuff you do that um, that you are picking up on a lot of stuff. Ooh, I'm flipping this.
It's okay.
That you're picking up on a lot of stuff in the world and like in other human beings, and it feels to me like there's information encoded in all the tiny little details and the minute details in the things that people do. There's like
Oh
some kind
yeah.
of information that you're sensing, and that you can't necessarily sit down and write out what it is that's compelling about that, but does that resonate with you at all? Like,
Yeah, 100%. I think that stuff is the funniest stuff, and the most interesting is the things that you can't really describe. It's like the way someone says like "ooh" or something, like a weird little thing.
yeah,
There's always things that you can't write that are, when they're good, it's just, oh, that's you. It's so special that it's like anything. It's why anything goes viral. It's like some dumb shit where this lady, she sits down. There's like she makes a sound, but it's not like she's trying to make that sound. She just made this weird sound, and people can't get enough of it because it's so interesting and unique. All that stuff is, to me, is I like to watch stuff a lot. I really like watching people.
yeah,
I like listening to people talk. I like watching any people, especially watching people when they can't tell you're watching them, is the best. Like when you can like sort of observe people like
yeah,
in the wild. I think
yeah.
that is priceless, and it's like, I don't know, it's just something about it is very um it's very special, and I think it's yeah, there's like something about listening to someone, just the way people act when they're not
Yeah.
acting
Yeah.
is priceless.
Yeah. I always get the feeling that there's always so much more to what's going on than you can ever put into words.
Hmm.
And people are so weird. And like, we don't even know, like, we don't even know how the idea of moving our arm translates to moving our arm, even in
Yeah.
simple ways, let alone
Right.
this like symphony of things that combines to make people who they are. And like when
Hmm.
people hear that, voices that you do or characters that you do of somebody that's like, you didn't know you knew that person, but you know that person, like
Yeah, for
they're
real.
familiar.
I
Yeah.
think there's only so many types of people out there. Really, it's probably like 180 or something, like with variations, or people
Yeah.
have someone else's nose and their same
Yeah.
eyes or their same ears or their
Yeah. It's
all
weird.
that
No,
stuff is.
it is exactly 180. Yeah.
Yep, maybe
Yeah.
179, probably
But
179.
yeah, one guy died. He was the only
Right,
guy like that, and he died. But
he
um,
gone.
sayonara. That's not racist to say sayonara. He did speak whatever language that is.
It's Japanese,
That
right?
guy,
Yeah.
yeah. That guy was Japanese. The guy who just died. He was a category of his own. But so yeah, I guess the other thing I sense when I'm watching what you do, and maybe this is hard to put into words, or maybe I'm just totally wrong, is that it comes from an actual love of human beings. Like,
Yeah, for sure. I think that's the case with everybody, though. I think it's a case of,
I hope so.
yeah, I just like most people. I mean, most people I think are terrible and really boring and
Yeah,
everything, but
the worst.
there's also a lot of people who are like criminally underrated. I think, or just like not so much underrated, but just there's not that much attention paid to them. And anytime you're doing an impression of someone, or anytime you're building a character, it comes from a place of love, I think. But it also, I think it's kind of weird because it also comes from a place of not wanting to be yourself, because
Mm,
it feels good to be somebody else, because being yourself is, I don't know, I think it can be really hard, and I don't like being myself most of the time. So
yeah,
if I can be someone else, you can live in someone else, and if you can make that person you're living in very realistic
yeah,
and enjoyable, then it's just that much more fun to inhabit that, because
yeah.
it feels good.
It can be very limiting to be yourself. Like I find, and even the notion of like, uh, I think maybe our culture has too much of that authenticity.
Yeah.
Uh, uh, I don't know what the word would be, like a requirement of authenticity. Like you got to be real, but it's like those people out there for whom being real is an obsession, or being real is, if it's important to you to be real, you're certainly going to be like dishonest at certain times, specifically
Uh-huh.
because you are being real, or you're being like your definition of real. And that's
Yeah,
when,
it can mean a lot of things, I guess. It's a pretty open-ended definition
yeah,
in terms of being real.
yeah, Instagram people who put up those inspirational quotes are certainly considering
Oh,
themselves to be extremely authentic
that stuff
people.
is the best, man. That stuff to me is just like I love it. I like love the people who usually it's like contestants on a reality shows. I actually know a girl. I took a class with her years ago. She was on one of the Bachelor shows, and she'd post stuff like that. I'm always just
Oh,
like, this
wow.
is just. But I also think a lot of those people, it's it's just a thing where um, they're just kind of simple minded in a sense, or maybe not so much. I don't want to, it sounds bad, but I mean more just like some people just don't have, they're not interested in a whole lot of things other than real kind of normal stuff. And I think there's nothing wrong with that at all. I
Yeah.
think it's kind of, it's fine and
Yeah.
it's not going to go away.
Yeah. No.
It's here to stay. And
Inspiration.
yeah, it just takes I think for me, it took me a long time to sort of not care about it, to be like, oh, that's just what that, that's just how, that's how that particular animal acts. And doesn't mean the animal's bad. It just means it's not interesting to you
No,
or to
exactly.
me,
It's
Yeah.
almost, yeah, it feels like maybe they're just part of a different ecosystem where uh, those statements that they throw out there into the void actually do resonate with some people. Like I didn't mean to kind of throw any shade at those people necessarily, but I guess it's clear that
You
I am.
should. Who cares?
Yeah.
Throw shade. Be racist. Be
Those
bad.
people.
No,
Oh, yeah. Well,
I
I'll
mean,
leave.
yeah, I don't think you should censor yourself in that sense. You know what I mean? I mean, like in terms of, just say it.
Yeah. Yeah. So like, I do think it's just a matter of people kind of maybe seeing life, like people figuring out life like a game, and then like, oh, okay, I figured out the rules to this,
Right.
and then somebody like you is like, if life was the game of Monopoly, I feel like you're the guy who's like licking the Monopoly money to see what it tastes like, and like, like seeing like throwing the hotels at people just to see how they react, or whatever,
Right.
because comedians do, they kind of push the boundaries. Yeah, they push you push the boundaries of polite society to see what happens.
Oh yeah. I mean, I think it's the classic definition of what comedy even is if you think about like a court jester or someone like that, like a clown,
Yeah.
the clown, I mean, because there's a lot of talk about clown stuff, at least in Los Angeles in the past couple of years. And um, I've been doing comedy for like, I guess about 14 years, maybe 15 years. And I've done a lot of different types of stuff, but I feel like that is essentially what a lot of the stuff I was doing at the time was what you would now consider clowning, I guess. Um, and from what I know about that is that clown, the whole thing with the clown is um, the clown. This is what Phil Berger's told me. He's an amazing comedian, and he
Sounds
was taught.
familiar.
Yeah, he was taught at this famous school in France. I can't Philip Gaulier or something like that.
Okay.
And
Yeah,
he
that sounds really
said,
familiar.
yeah, it's a famous. I think maybe even
Is it
what's his
Philippe
name?
Gagnon?
It's Philippe something. I can't remember exactly, but it's the
Gagnon
place.
comes to my mind. Anyway, go ahead.
It's the place that Zach Galifianakis goes in that show, Baskets, I think, or
Okay.
at least that's where he's supposed to have been being trained. But the whole thing with clowning is he says that the clown lives in the kingdom of the bad, which basically means like the clown is always making a mistake. The clown's falling down. The clown is like a fool. He's a shameful fool, but because the clown makes it okay for us to laugh at him
Mm, yeah.
because of the way the clown's attitude is. You don't feel bad for the clown. You laugh at the clown because the clown is doing it in a way that makes it okay to laugh at. And it's a very specific thing. I feel like I can't explain it, but
Yeah.
that all comedians are essentially in some form or another, I think are clowns. If you're not a clown, I think you're basically doing commentary. And there's nothing wrong with being funny doing commentary, but
Yeah.
I think that to me is like that's like the two worlds. Like where are you in the Venn diagram? Are you a clown? Are you a
Yeah.
commentator? Or are you somewhere in between?
Yeah. It is a weird thing, and it's such it seems like such an intuitive process. Obviously they can teach it, but for you're not falling over a chair necessarily, but
Well, I have
you're,
done a lot of that actually.
yeah.
I've done like a ton of it. I used to have a whole bit where I would fall over a chair. I think I can't remember why. That was some sort of thing where I was like be falling. I've done a lot of falling. Definitely a lot of not as much as my friend Josh, but I mean,
You ever hurt
yeah.
yourself?
A little bit. Again, not like my friend Josh. Like there's a lot of stuff that I've done that I've been surrounded by some of the funniest people I think in the world. So for me to say something, I think it's very humbling. It's also like I can say whatever I want and feel like, oh, I was really funny, did really good. But then you see someone else like, oh my God, that is just unbelievable. There's so many. Half of my friends are people where I watch them and I just I'm amazed at how talented and how interesting they are. So
Yeah. Oh, well,
uh,
and when you get together with some of these people,
mhm.
how often do you, I always wonder about this, how often do comedians kind of get into like real philosophical territory, or is that like, obviously that's an
I
individual
don't know. I think
person?
I do a lot. I mean, my friend Duncan and I talk about that stuff a lot.
Duncan Trussell,
Yeah,
oh my God,
we talk
he's the
about
best.
stuff like that a lot. I think I talk about it with other comedians. I guess anytime
Yeah.
you're traveling with someone, if you're on the road,
Yeah.
like you always end up talking about everything. I guess, but I think for the most part, most of my closer friends are people who do like talking about weird stuff like that. I guess there's
Yeah.
also a lot of people who do a lot of drugs and things, and so it
Yeah.
kind of
Yeah.
comes with the territory
Yeah.
to where you're taking psychedelic drugs or anything. You kind of it's
Yeah.
you're just thinking about stuff a little differently, maybe.
Yeah, that's awesome. That can be a really good thing. And
Hmm.
I love listening to you talk to Duncan. I think he's one of the few people who does a really good job of going back and forth across the line of like absurdism into like absolute sincerity in the same
Hmm.
conversation. And
Yeah,
yeah,
he's a great interpreter too. He's really good at like communicating stuff in that realm. Like he's so good at it. Where
yeah,
I don't have the patience for a lot of times. I'm just like I can't live in this. I get antsy. That's why we're a good I like touring with him a lot because it's the perfect combination. I feel like it's like
yeah.
peanut butter and jelly kind of thing.
Yeah,
So
he doesn't have to always be like deep hard on the sleeve philosophy. It can also be like absolutely insane. Like
yeah.
you guys go off into riffs like that are just like it sounds rehearsed, but it also sounds like completely insane. Like nobody would ever write that down. Like
Yeah,
no way it's rehearsed. Well, that's amazing. He's one of my favorites as well.
it's great.
Yeah. Um, so I don't know, like, I guess, we've talked about this already, but what I wonder is if people are comedians sometimes, you can maybe speak to this. If
Hmm.
people are comedians sometimes because of like a great tension inside between, kind of like the most, how would I put it? Like the most judgmental of humanity and of human beings because you're so
Hmm.
perceptive, but
Yeah.
then the most like loving because it's also your audience. And so you also really care about everybody. It's sort of like this weird tension that
Yeah.
would be hard to contain.
No,
Does
I think everyone struggles with that. I definitely struggle with that all the time. A lot of times, I think it's really. I think some of the most creative people, some of the people who outwardly seem the most inspirational and positive, are some of the darkest people I've ever met.
Mm,
And I said that being. I feel like that's uh, myself to some extent, where I have to be positive about a lot of things. Otherwise, it goes to the negative, and it
mm,
can any kind of creativity of negative, any kind of negative creativity, any type of positive creativity, if it isn't used for good, it gets used for bad.
Mm,
So I think it's very important to stay positive. And for that reason, though, um, yeah, like you're saying, I think everyone I know who I can think about every comedian I know, basically at one time or another, saying stuff where I'm like, what are you fucking? I mean, especially it's amplified with social media.
yeah.
Like, why are you saying this? Being so negative about this person or this group,
Right.
and it's just because people there's like a darkness that I think every comedian, at least especially the funny ones, there's like a weird darkness
Yeah.
in their mind or in their past or both, and it comes out sometimes because nobody's perfect.
Right.
You slip up and you allow yourself to be sort of consumed by something that's satanic or whatever, and it comes out of you as opposed to the
Yeah.
joyful aspect of it, which is I don't know,
But
man. It's fucking complicated.
no, I know, but it makes sense. It actually makes perfect sense to me because I feel like what comedians do. I mean, I'm not trying to psychoanalyze comedians, but I
Go
think
ahead. I do all the time.
yeah, fuck them. No, I think what comedians do is they it seems to me like they are introspecting. So like
Uh-huh.
they're introspecting into society itself.
Hmm.
So it's like it's clearly not introspection because it's like looking outward, but it almost feels like you're staring into the collective consciousness of human beings. And every time you're on the stage,
Hmm.
you're basically opening up a portal that is that is created by the specific group of people in that room. And
Right.
you're looking through that portal, and they're telling you, like, if you're looking through the portal because they are laughing at what you're saying. They're responding to it. They're giving you the responses that you're maybe expecting or looking for, and you go in that direction. And so you're actually staring into this tunnel, like into the void of the collective consciousness in a way
Hmm.
that like most people don't ever do. And
Yeah.
it is very dark.
It's very dark. It's very dangerous. But also, that what you're saying there is like a perfect world. I'd say most comedy is someone up there just fucking pandering, just saying stuff.
Right.
So like, please like me, saying the stuff that they. And
Yeah.
I've pandered many times. I've had times when
Sure.
I've bombed. I felt like I bombed, but I didn't bomb. And there's been
Right.
times when I to an observer, it's like, oh, he fucking bombed. But I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, that was great. I felt so
Yeah.
good about it.
Yeah.
So
You
yeah,
got somewhere.
there's always different combinations of things. But yeah, when it's great, when it's really like a thing, it's lightning.
Yeah. And so you open yourself up to that darkness as much as to that light, and it is a vulnerable place because
Yeah.
people are laughing at themselves, so you're kind of opening them up, you're opening yourself up. Like there was one time, I don't want to get into it, but there was one time in my life where I spoke to I basically talked down a man who was not well.
Wow.
And
Suicidal.
yeah, he wasn't. I mean, he may have been suicidal
Mm.
in the moment. He was confrontational, and my family was around and
Oh
stuff.
wow.
And I realized the only way out was through. Like it was this weird moment of intuition. Sorry, this isn't about me, but um, and so I spoke with this guy in a really, really dark place, and
Hmm.
we had our hands on each other's shoulders, and I was looking him in the eye, and it was like after it was over, I was doubled over in excruciating physical pain
Yeah.
because and I'd never really had that because I guess normally when you can tell somebody's like messed up, you don't intentionally engage, and even just like in physical proximity, you don't look them in the eye, you don't
Yeah.
go to that place. And I did it that one time, and I'm glad I did. But man, like I was shocked at how much it affected me. So
You stared into the abyss.
I kind of did, yeah.
You got a demon hit basically.
Yeah, man. It
That's
was
crazy.
and there was a real spiritual element to what he was doing
Sounds
too.
like it.
Like and I prayed with the guy. Like I
Wow.
haven't done that. Prayed with a stranger. But anyway, it was intense. But my point was that I'm just riffing on the idea that when something's going well, like maybe when you're up there on the stage and the audience is really with you on those rare
Mm-hmm.
moments where it's like the lightning in a bottle. I'm wondering if that darkness, if you just kind of can't keep that darkness from coming in, like there's a bit of almost a sacrificial element to doing that.
Yeah, I don't know.
Or
Maybe
am
I
I
think.
overthinking it?
Well, I don't know. I don't think you can overthink some of that stuff. It's kind of like there's no. I don't think you can. I probably use some of that. I think sometimes it's like a thing where if things aren't going well, a lot of times the darkness comes up
Mm,
and it's really bad. But I think for the most part, I think it's sort of like a form of communion.
mm,
And but if you're doing the communion, if everything is going well with that, then you're sort of insulated from that type of darkness.
mm.
Or if you do present something dark, you're presenting it in a way, sort of how it's okay to have a bad dream because it's a dream.
Right.
I think
Yeah.
it's the similar type of thing where
Yeah.
you can present things that are toxic through comedy because they're insulated
Yeah.
by being presented in that way.
Yeah. You're kind of almost redeeming this idea, or allowing people to go to a dark place. And
Yeah, you're giving permission.
there can be gratitude from people for that. I definitely feel
Yeah.
that way when in certain times. I think that's why sometimes, like, I don't know about you, but I'm kind of obsessed with the bleakest, darkest movies.
Oh hell yeah, that was my
Yeah.
favorite. Yeah,
Yeah.
those are my favorite movies always. They're like the ones that are just like, oh, this is so fucking bleak. Like
Yeah.
what's that movie with Nick Nolte? It's the Paul Schrader movie.
I haven't seen it.
Affliction.
Oh yeah, you recommend?
That movie is the bleakest thing ever, man.
Wow.
Yeah, it really captures the bleakness of the late winter in the Midwest.
Oh man, that sounds
Yeah.
amazing. I'll try to watch that. I don't have any bleak movie buddies or
Oh,
anything, so and my wife likes lighter stuff, so
right.
I don't get to watch a ton, but when I do, I'm so grateful. I think one of my favorites is Kill List. Did you ever see that movie, Kill
No,
List?
Kill List.
Kill
I haven't
List,
seen it.
yeah.
How old is it?
I don't even know. It's definitely
Really?
from like post 2005, I would say,
Really?
but I'm bad with that.
You ever seen
Um,
A Simple Plan?
oh yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah,
That's a
stuff like
good one.
I love that.
Yeah, like moral ambiguity, where like when you can relate to a guy killing a guy who a few
Uh-huh.
days earlier was a normal guy, when you can
Yeah,
actually be like, in that situation, I might do the same thing he just did.
right.
I love that. It should be the thing that makes us like hate ourselves. We should be like,
Right.
oh, I related to that guy killing that guy. Like I should be self-loathing right now, but somehow it feels so good.
We're just animals.
Yeah. So the darkness and the light, they do feel like they're kind of like, um,
Intertwined.
intertwined. Yeah.
Yeah.
They're of a piece, I guess, or something.
Mm-hmm.
And comedians do that. Like you can just see when a comedian gets a chance to, like, when somebody leaves something open for just the wrong thing to be said, you can just see like the glee in the eyes of a comedian. Like I don't know, like if somebody says something offensive or does something offensive, and it's a
Mm-hmm.
jumping off place. So
Yeah,
that's
for sure.
a really interesting kind of thing. So yeah, so I was wondering uh what your thoughts are on kind of persona. Like, do you have characters that you regularly do, or personas that you take on where you feel like you can kind of open up or be honest in a different way than you normally can?
Yeah, I think that's the case with every character, though. It's the same. They're all. I think they're all that way. Every time you do a character, I mean, um, that's a chance to express something you couldn't do normally, and it's like a safe. I mean, it goes back to like an ancient idea of even in like theater, like the idea of wearing a mask.
Hmm.
All that stuff is all like this ancient Greek stuff where it's this thing where you're wearing a mask and you're presenting yourself uh, differently, but because it's in the theater, there's sanctuary. It has sanctity.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, any character I ever do is always that way, where I feel like I can say stuff like that character I did for years, and I still do Dick or Troy. When I do that character, it's like very much a version of me.
Yeah.
So, and I've done that character. I mean, I've done it live probably 100 or 200 hours. So I've done it
Yeah.
so much that it's a thing where the character has to be an extension of you. Otherwise, you can't. It's not sustainable.
Yeah.
Like there's fun characters that are like weirdo glimmer things, but if a character isn't in some way an extension of you, you can't really do it very long. It's also not very interesting.
Right. Yeah.
But there's something about if you can disguise yourself in a character, you can say stuff and do stuff that you wouldn't normally be able to do, and maybe you don't really mean those things, but there's an element of truth to it.
Yeah. There's got to be. Yeah.
And that's what makes it really, what really, I don't know, like pop. It makes it like feel very uh, lively and feels like it's a living thing, like a living character.
Yeah, and it is in a way. Like I think all kinds of parts of ourselves are like sub personalities that we take on. I always wonder if there's like I come from a Southern Baptist, like I was originally from the Southern United States, and man, the characters in Southern Baptist churches and in Southern Baptist culture are off the chain.
I can't imagine. Yeah,
yeah, and there's so much persona. Like I remember I was at my granny's house in Tennessee, and the pastor came by to do a pastoral visit. And he was this muscular, like he was in his 60s, and he called her little sister, and hello little sister, and he said it with this really kind way, and she was just glowing and just like but the intensity coming off of that guy.
I love all those preachers. I think I love watching them.
It's crazy.
Still to this day, even modern ones, it's just so fun to watch them because you get to see this person who's doing something with so much conviction, even if they are kind of like shady or whatever. It's just, I love the performance of it. I feel like most comedians aren't even half as interesting as your average preacher because there's always like when they hit stuff and like there's like the rhythmic element to it because you got to get people engaged, you got to get them fired up. There's all this stuff like that.
Yeah.
One of my favorite comedians is this guy, Steve Hernandez. He's a friend of mine. And he used to be a youth pastor. And when you see him perform, it's the same way where there's not a person in the room. He isn't like, he just can like juggle all these people.
Oh, it's interactive.
He's so good at it. And just to watch it I love it. Anytime someone can do that, when they can just like command a room and juggle everything and really kind of have this super forthright and sort of, I guess, self-assured perspective. I love watching that because I feel like I'm the opposite.
Well, it's like the difference between a pastor and a comedian obviously is that they can never drop at least some part of that persona. Like if they're, I mean, of course they're not always preaching on a stage, but you can say stuff you absolutely don't mean. Right. You can fill a whole set with stuff you don't mean, and and everybody in the audience knows that it's bullshit, but like in the best way. But the pastor just can't do that. And it's probably super paralyzing, I would imagine. I mean, I'm sure your friend has some dark tales.
Oh yeah.
Like of his kind of like going from being a youth pastor into being a comedian. I mean, does he still believe, or is he? I
don't think so, but I mean, I don't know. It's complicated. I think with him, and I think it's complicated with anybody in that situation.
Of course, yeah. I was in a ministry position for a couple years, and it is the strangest thing. It is the strangest thing because you feel like it's probably the closest to what a comedian feels that you can get when you get up. Because I was actually leading music, and sometimes you'd feel like the intensity from a multi-generational crowd of people, and I hit something on the head there. I got everybody to this place that I wanted them to be in,
right?
And it could be an addictive thing for sure, but it certainly would not continue if you ever were like, but I actually really think that this is all kind of bogus. Like everything I just said, I don't actually mean. I just said it so you would, I just said it so you'd follow me to this exaltant place or something like that.
Probably a
So,
lot of people who do that though, right? I bet.
oh yeah, for sure. I mean, and
Yeah.
I'm not saying I was like being like, not that I was actually just saying a bunch of stuff I didn't believe, but I mean,
Right.
it got to that point where I was scared of that. And like, that's the main, you guys, I mean, comedians have an outlet, or have a valve, you can kind of, you don't have to be,
Sorta. Sometimes. I
yeah,
mean, I think it depends with everybody, but
yeah,
yeah, it is different because there's a wider range, and it's more of a personal set of beliefs than anything.
yeah. You mean being a comedian?
Yeah.
Yeah. And probably a little bit, everybody's beliefs are a little bit different.
Right, because you basically just go up there telling people what you think about stuff, and even though if it's not, even if people don't agree, a lot of times they will laugh because it's like, because it's comedy. It's not like a lesson. It's not like a
Yeah.
speech.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. That's a huge advantage that you have. Um,
Hmm.
well, yeah. I mean, this has been awesome. I think we're coming up on an hour now, which
Cool.
it went by really fast. I really appreciate you uh, being on the show.
Yeah, happy to
Um,
be here.
yeah. Oh, I was going to ask, how's your COVID-19 uh, quarantine going? Like, how are you?
It's going pretty damn good. I mean, it's kind of like normal for me because
Yeah.
it's like when I'm not working on a show or something, this is kind of what my life is like,
Yeah.
except for the fact that I can't really go out and go out. I like to go out and go hiking and do stuff like that a lot more, but I don't know. I've kind of settled into it.
Are you one of those comedians that goes and does comedy like several nights a week in a club? Like, if you can,
No, I feel like I probably do less comedy than almost anyone. I mean, there's a
really?
lot of comedians who would say I'm not a real comedian because I don't do comedy that because
Okay.
I do I I make a living for the most part off acting. So
Yeah.
which I don't really think there's that big a difference between comedy and acting. I just
Right.
happen to love acting and I do that, and I've been lucky enough to be to get hired to do that. So
That's awesome.
yeah, but I love performing. When I do get the chance to perform a lot,
Yeah.
I love to perform as much as possible because it's great. It's like it's like going swimming if you're a kid. You don't want to get
Yeah.
out of the pool.
Yeah. You got
Mhm.
people like Joe Rogan though who are doing like several nights a week while flying all over the place and
Yeah,
doing his
I
podcast.
don't know, but some people that's how they. I feel like I have to take more time watching and listening and sort of like being just having fun and like I have much more to say, and I say it better if I have time to kind of like observe things
Yeah.
than just smashing my opinion into the
Yeah.
ground every night, multiple times.
Like a
But that's
refractory
just me,
period,
though.
or to
Yeah.
gather new things. Well, I get the feeling that you are a person who does, like, you want to do something new as much as possible.
Oh, yeah. But that's actually a kind of been a bad thing for me because
Yeah.
for years and years, I was so addicted to doing new stuff that I would never hone the things that were great.
Right.
And so I have like hours and hours of material, but it's all kind of, lost to time because I
Yeah.
just want to move forward so fast. So now I'm working on this show, actually transcribing it verbatim because I'm doing this hour long show that that's the thing I'm working on. So it's like a new
Oh,
thing for me,
awesome.
it's really hard to do that. It's so hard for me to do that, but I'm
Yeah.
just pushing it. I'm doing it.
Is it going to be like a special, or is it going to be like
That's the
skits, or
idea.
okay.
Be like a special.
Okay, like a stand-up special for an
Yeah, I
hour.
guess you say. Yeah, I mean, the word stand up to me, I feel like that's sort of kind of reductive. And I mean,
Sure.
technically, I don't know what stand up, at what point does something not become stand up? But yeah, I
Right.
guess you could say it's a stand up special. I
Cool.
just I don't like, I don't like to say stand up just because I know so many people who are so funny and they do so much actual stand up comedy in clubs
Yeah.
and stuff that sometimes what I do, I feel like, well, that's not really the same thing. So, because if I were to compare it to that, it would be I would just fall woefully short, because it's not the same thing.
I'm sure your fans wouldn't think that it was woefully short. Uh,
No, I just mean like in terms of how I have to. I don't know. It's like how I think about it, my how I construe it in my head or something like that.
yeah.
Basically, just in terms of because that's why I think about a lot of stuff. How you present something, it
Yeah.
matters a lot. And so if you present something as being A, but it feels more like B, then unless you're intentionally ob- obfuscating the truth, which I think is great, then it doesn't make sense to
Right.
be like playing basketball with a baseball kind of thing. I
Man,
don't know.
I can
Okay.
100% relate to that. Like it's been for the longest time, it was really hard for me to call myself a musician
Hmm.
or whatever, the different things, because yeah, it does feel like you put that term on it, you bring everybody's expectations of exactly what that is, as opposed to like what we're all doing, which is actually trying to figure out what we actually are. And
Yeah.
it's always going to fall in between categories and like anybody who's really comfortable with their category is like I can't relate to that, or especially if you would do something to be in a category. I can't relate to
Yeah. Well, that's how I feel about acting. Like that's part of the reason why I've had a lot of success with acting is I don't really care about it that much. And I
mm,
sort of approach it from I don't approach it from a real, what's the word? I don't want to say respectful, but I don't approach it really, I don't know. I
you're not a
guess I just,
craftsman, or it's not precious or something, you're not
yeah, no,
precious
I'm
about it.
not precious about it. I'm not precious about it.
Yeah,
And so I think that's helped me a lot with
yeah,
comedy and acting is not being precious about stuff. I think that's, yeah,
that doesn't get enough
totally.
that doesn't get enough press or play, in my opinion, is the idea of like uh, of not holding something super close to your not
Oh
holding
yeah.
something super close to your chest, like like I play guitar, and like I'm not bad at guitar, I'm pretty good at guitar, but I can't stand the thought of being a guitarist or something.
Right. I know what you're saying. Yeah.
So I would like go and learn analog synthesis because I want to be a noob at something, or
Yeah.
because it's like, oh, where
That's
are
a
those?
Zen thing though. That's an old Zen idea. The
Yeah,
idea of a beginner's mind.
yeah, where are those stupid baby joys that I used to have? Like they're not there anymore when you can pick up and like
Yeah.
I have such a love-hate relationship with the craftsman.
Oh yeah. It's terrible. I remember how
Yeah,
much I used to worship like virtuoso musicians. And now it's something where I'm like, a second I see that, I just have no interest at
yeah,
all.
yeah.
I want to hear somebody who's bad.
You're a musician as well, a bit yourself,
Yeah,
aren't you?
that's how I started. For years, I was a musician. I actually thought I was gonna go into music before anything. So,
Oh yeah, cool.
but
It was
yeah, big music guy.
it was Green Day for me, which actually is kind of funny because like when I'm not like a big Green Day fan, but
Hmm.
when Dookie came out, I don't know how old you are, but
I remember Dookie trying to learn the bass line for Longview.
yeah,
It's the first bass line I ever learned. It's
yeah,
so
yeah,
hard.
yeah.
And those chords, ding, 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 ding. Those were
Yeah,
that's a hard bass line.
it is funny because in my brain, I wasn't actually a musician really yet. I was barely, and I thought they were great because I thought they were bad musicians. And then when
Oh,
I grew up,
really?
I'm like, oh, actually, no, they're really quite
They're fucking good.
they're really
They're
quite good
really
musicians.
good.
So it was like almost this weird cockiness, like, oh, these guys can do it and they're bad,
Yeah.
But then you listen to like Bonnie Prince Billy with some really bad notes, or like I
Oh,
got
yeah.
I got really into the Van Bell and Sebastian, and
Mm.
they would put out music with uh, the background singer singing a wrong lyric, like
Oh, right. Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I love that kind of stuff. When
yeah,
stuff is
it's
just,
so good.
yeah,
Yeah,
the mistakes are always the best part of anything.
the giddiness
Mhm.
of hearing somebody coming up with something. Or do you ever listen to Kraftwerk? That
A little bit, yeah.
there's that album Ralph und Florian,
Okay.
which is so good, and there's like I swear they must be coming up with the keyboard lines. Like it sounds like they're rehearsing the keyboard lines for
They
some of
might
them.
be. Who knows?
And then they'll like try a little variation, like it's not precise. Anyway, I don't know why I'm ranting about this, but yeah, there's that whole amateurism thing, and I think
Hmm.
that's what I sense, that what you're doing is always giving yourself an opportunity to be an amateur at something, or to be kind of a doe-eyed.
Or just to
uh,
play. I think playing is important.
that's a better
Yeah.
way to put it than what I'm saying.
If you're not playing, then I think you're not doing your job. A lot of times people take themselves so seriously, but I think the most serious you can be about acting or comedy is to find a way to professionally allow yourself to get to a place where you can play. And a lot of times getting to a place where you can play means practicing so much that you can forget everything and kind of
Yeah.
let it be,
Yeah.
let it be loose. And some people need to practice a lot to let themselves be loose. Some people take a bunch of drugs to get loose. Some people are
Mhm.
just fucking crazy and they can be loose because
Yeah.
they're a virtuoso, like fucking Hendrix or
Yeah.
someone like that, they're a virtuoso. So they're able to play easily because they understand their instrument, whatever that instrument is, so well that
Mm.
they can play. And I think
Yeah.
that's all it is. I mean, to be a virtuoso, at least in my mind, like the virtuosos who I enjoy, it's just because they are so good that they can play around. Like
Right.
Glenn Gould, I love Glenn Gould,
Yeah.
and I love him play because he's obviously he's a prodigy,
Yeah.
so he has this mastery of the piano, but the way he plays is so spirited.
Yeah.
I think it's because he just has such an intense mastery of it that he's
Mhm.
not at all thinking about what he's doing. He's
Yeah.
just lost in the current of what he's
Right.
doing. So it's really just a fight of fancy. It's almost like he's riding this wave that he's generating himself. And
Yeah.
that happens in everything. Happens in, you know,
The flow
a
state.
monologue. Yeah, flow state. You have a monologue. You have like you're doing a stand-up comedy performance, and I think when it's good, it's great, and it's just about
Yeah. I
yeah,
think it's about like the subconscious is there no matter what. The
yeah,
subconscious exists, and being a virtuoso is getting your facility up to a high degree, and then allowing whatever walks through the door from
hmm
your subconscious to walk through the door. Whatever idea kind of like comes blinking out of your subconscious, kind of unbidden, you take it and you perform with it. You make it into the feature kind of thing, which is a beautiful thing. Yeah, Glenn Gould's a great example because
hmm
he's playing music off of sheet music.
He's playing Bach. He's
And
playing the
I've
most rigorous thing that exists. He's
exactly,
playing math. He's basically playing
yeah.
what math looks like. That's what math sounds like. But
And he
he's
was the first time that I felt, sorry, I interrupted you.
no, I was just saying that Bach is math. That's why I think
Mhm.
of Bach basically.
Yeah. And Glenn Gould was probably the first time, because I'm not a huge classical music guy, but probably the first time that I could really hear a person interpreting the emotion of each bit. And it somehow, even with like no knowledge of what he's doing exactly, or how much he's delaying that note, or
Oh yeah, it's
how
these
much, how
tiny,
hard,
tiny
this
things.
those yeah, those tiny things, just
hmm
like those little tiny,
Little nuance.
just like those little tiny nuances in your accents or in your facial expression when you're doing like a character and you're really in the flow
Yeah,
or something
man.
like that. It is like it's a crazy thing to witness. And so what I'm saying is basically you are equal to Glenn Gould, that
Yes, that's
you're the,
what I
you're the,
wanted to hear all my life.
yeah, there you go. Yeah, you can die now.
I can
But
die
yeah.
washing my hands repetitively and sitting on a weird chair that's lower than anyone else's chair.
And somebody will find you eventually. Uh,
Yeah, I'll go on a railroad in Canada for 2 years of my life.
Did he do that?
He did some weird stuff. Yeah, he was obsessed with recording conversations toward the later part of his life. He would call people up in the middle of the night and talk to them on the phone for like 2 or 3 hours. He did this experiment in isolation where he rode the Trans-Canadian Railway and he just recorded people talking and recorded
Yeah.
conversations with them. It's intensely boring, but I
Yeah.
think it's like that same Warholian type thing where you're,
Right.
I don't
There's
know.
something
I
going
just love
on.
that guy. I love him not just as a piano player, but I just like
Yeah.
his whole ethos.
You never see anybody at the top of the game who is intensely normal. I don't think. Like,
Yeah.
I don't think you can break through all the cognitive layers that they have to break through to get there and just be like undamaged. Not that he was damaged. I mean, he was damaged, but like
He
I
was a
don't want to
weirdo. He's this
downplay it.
strange guy.
Yeah. I love the
Or like,
little chair. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
yeah, the little. You ever listen to Bruce Hack?
Oh, I love Bruce Hack. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
he's like, to me. I listen to him. I mean, I don't listen to him that much anymore, but I used to be absolutely obsessed with him. And he's someone who I'm
Oh,
like,
yeah.
what an interesting person, but
An
also
alternate
super
universe person.
tortured guy. You know, just so.
Yeah. I am a child,
Mhm.
program me. Like,
God, the best.
oh yeah, yeah. I've had some Bruce Hack moments.
There's nothing like it, really.
He, someone is running a Bruce Hack account and retweeted me at one point,
Oh,
and
cool.
I thought it was I had to like step back and be like, no, there's no way this is Bruce Hack.
No, because it was probably Chris Kachulis, maybe.
I don't know who that is.
He's one of Bruce's old friends. He lives in New York. I had him on
Okay,
my
so
podcast last year.
oh really? I'll
Really
have to
good,
look that
really
up.
interesting podcast. Yeah, with him.
Oh
He's a
man,
very strange guy, very sweet man, but he's definitely
do you?
um,
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
it's just a strange guy. Yeah.
I'm gonna have to look up that episode. Do you ever get into like the people at the BBC Radiophonic Workshop?
I have a
Uh,
little bit. I think the John Baker is someone I've listened
yeah,
to. I like him a lot. I mean, I don't get too deep down that. I like Raymond Scott a lot. I like Bruce Hack a lot, but I feel
yeah,
like I like all their stuff. I like everything they've done.
yeah,
So there's not a whole lot of people out there who's done things that are similar. And some of that stuff to me just gets a little bit,
yeah.
I don't know. Like it's not musical enough for me, especially
It,
as the older I get. I
yeah.
like it has to be musical. I can't listen to the the
No,
experimental stuff I used to love.
that resonates with me too. Like, yeah, we named our daughter after Delia Derbyshire from the BBC Radiophonic Workshop, and for
Okay.
some reason, like those people are really compelling to me. But you're right, the music is all over the map. Like, it can be,
Like Susan Ciani.
yeah,
Susan,
yeah,
her stuff, and same with Terry Riley. I kind of got into Terry Riley.
yeah. He's pretty accessible.
Yeah, that stuff
Yeah,
to me is the best because it feels very musical, but
yeah,
it's also very experimental, and it's got like all these. It's got a lot of warmth to it. I think that's what
yeah,
I look for is the warmth
yeah.
factor.
It's got
Yeah.
a zen quality to it where you kind of feel like they were spacing out. And
Yeah, they're not doing it to do it. It's like you hear like these interviews with Susan. I think that's her name, Susan Ciani.
yeah, Chiani, yeah,
She is just so. She seems like just a really very normal person. And she's
yeah,
like, and she's good at speaking. She's not like some weirdo, like quirky person. But then you see what she's doing, and it doesn't make sense that this super bizarre, experimental,
yeah.
progressive music is being made by someone who seems like your mom's aunt, your
Oh
mom's
yeah,
sister, kind of thing.
it's
But
even
that's my favorite. I love when normal people, do weird shit.
it's even more pronounced when you listen to like either Daphne Oram or Delia Derbyshire from the BBC Radiophonic
Uh-huh.
Workshop speak, because they were like, I mean, Delia Derbyshire in particular, she talks like, she kind of
Oh
almost
yeah,
the queen,
that's the
almost like,
best.
and yeah, she talks so normal, and yet she was so badass that like when synthesizers came in, she was too principled to use them because she was a tape manipulator. Like
Wow, that's
it was
cool. Yeah,
it was
that's
all
rough.
about cutting tape like laboriously. She did the actual sounds for the Doctor Who theme song.
She's a fucking hipster, man. That's the real
Yeah,
hipster shit.
exactly. But in like a
Mhm.
little pencil skirt, and like she looks like somebody on Monty Python would play
That's
as
funny.
a boring character.
That's
Like
interesting. Yeah,
yeah,
I
and
love that stuff. I really do.
so good. Okay, well, I've kept you a long time,
Okay,
but Johnny Pemberton, thanks so much for coming on the show, being my first comedian. Um,
great.
and
Great to be here, Aaron.
anything you want to plug really quick that people can?
You can find my podcast, Live to Tape. You can find
Yeah,
it on iTunes and every place
mhm,
else. And otherwise,
yeah,
if you want to find something of mine, you just go to my Instagram or have my link tree on there or my website,
yeah,
johnnypemberton.dog.
yeah. I love your Twitter too.
Cool, man.
Yeah. All right. Well, yeah. Thanks. It was great to meet you, and I'll stop it here.